are you a net importer? And what are the items? So when you go on these national income records, you have to check on what are your exports and where do they go. What are your imports and where do they come from? How much money do you get for those exports to South Africa? If they reduce the prices there, what will happen to your demand? So you also have to have your microeconomics ready, because there are certain products, even if the prices go down, the elasticity of demand is not much. So supposing we export to South Africa, we export rice. And South Africa says, we will reduce the tax on rice from Malawi by 50%. Is our demand going to go up by 50%? Should we be happy that South Africa is doing that? Should we be excited? And therefore, we should also reduce the tax that we charge on cereals, cornflakes from South Africa? And by how much? Now, if our exports of rice will go up because the price has gone down, because the effect of reduction in the tax is that the product price goes down. So in demand and supply theory, what did we learn? If the price goes down, the demand goes up, right? But not for every good. It's based on the nature of the good. So that economic should be in there already on your table. What is our demand shape is? And what is our supply response? Because there are some products, even if prices go down and the demand has become up, you cannot supply. For many conflicts, they can immediately. Mpunga mudikile kaya kuti mukalime. Ukuku demand ya kwera. Kumainoyo kuti for you to meet that demand, mkaende mwakauza mafama ayambe kuchita respond. Meanwhile, you are not benefiting. So what I'm trying to say, my figures are all, they help government make decisions, they help to save, to make understanding these figures. Businesses, they will also, a business which has got financial guys in there, economists in there, they will use these figures for the growth of their own business, for planning, for strategic decisions, where to open companies, blah, blah, blah. Decision making. National income accounts, not only for government, but especially government. Government makes a lot of decisions based on these figures. Just that small example. There are many other examples that we can use. So in some of the notes, you will see some of the uses, what we call uses of national income accounting statistics. Mind you, if a question comes up in an exam, can you discuss the uses of national economic statistics data? This is what I would be expecting from you, to be able to know what is my GDP, how can we use it? Remember, the different ways of calculating the GDP. So, for example, if you use the income approach as one example, income approach, to learn about any gachani, gareba, garandi, gachani, by scrutinizing as you are adding up, you can tell which factors are more important in any industry. Where does the income go? Is it employment issues are at stake? Is it capital issue? So for example, if companies are paying so much on interest rates, it can only mean two things. Either companies are borrowing a lot, or the interest rates are so high. You can deduct so many things from looking at whether it is land. Is it land which is expensive, or is it scarce? What about profit? What is the percentage of profit when you add it up in the cost of risk? If you are using the value-added approach there, and you find on each stage how much profit has been added, at the end how much profit is there in grade. Why? Why are there so much profit? Is this bread produced competitively, or is only one particular businessman who is in charge of milling, selling flour? Do we have a lot of wheat millers in our house? Or everybody is buying bread flour from one person, from one producer? Is there a monopoly? Because if there is a monopoly, you expect phenomenal profits to happen, because there is no competition, and it ends up hitting the final consumer of bread, because of just this supply chain bottleneck. Because all that from land producing wheat to bread, there are all those chains in the middle. If one chain is not efficiently managed, you will find the price at the end being not realistic. So there are so many of those things that you can learn from these statistics. But I also talked about problems. The informal sector, we don't capture everything. These GDP figures, they will not represent a complete and true picture of the economic activity, especially as developing countries, because of the existence of a huge informal sector. Miscalculations can also happen. That's what we talked about. But today I wanted to move on about another concept, which is the concept of economic growth. What do we mean by economic growth? And how do you differentiate economic growth from economic development? Economic growth and economic development is not the same thing. So sometimes people misunderstand these two concepts. Economic growth is about the values of how much is it growing from one year to the other. That's what we call economic growth. This growth is absolute figures. So economic growth is probably the same as GDP growth. GDP increase, I should say. GDP increase. So in 2020, we had $10 billion. In 2021, so 2020, 10, 2021, 11, 2022, 12, and so on. So then you say there is economic growth. This is GDP. These are $billion. So in 2020 it was $10 billion, 2021 $11 billion, 2022 $12 billion. We will say we can calculate what's the growth rate of our GDP, what's the growth rate of our country. So there we are talking about economic growth, increase in output. We are making progress, we are increasing. And always be very careful whether you are talking about market prices or constant prices. So, because we measure GDP at the price, at the current price. Is it current dollar price or constant? So always make sure if you want to see the real growth, this is just nominal, and then we have what we call real. Now real is inflation adjusted. When we say real. So for example, inflation could have been between here and here, inflation was 5%. So the real GDP is not actually raising. It might be 10 point something. So be careful what you are talking about. Be specific. Nominal economic growth rate or real economic growth rate. You have to adjust. Because how does that mean? When we say price of bread, we say price of bread market today. We will put, let's say, 10 million loaves of bread we are producing them around today at one kwacha. So 10 million kwacha. Whether in 1 year we produce 1 billion loaves of bread at one kwacha, it means we will multiply and find the value of bread that year. Next year, we will also say, okay, we have produced 1 billion 200 loaves at one kwacha 20. We will find the figure. Now, we'll be looking at last year and this year. And yet this year the price of bread was different. Even though this year maybe the bread is more, but the price is also more. So we need to be adjusting so that we compare the same things. Okay? But this growth is real growth, not price growth. So you adjust. And what we use what we call deflators. Either use a deflator or an inflator. So when they say deflated, it means they are adjusting it with the price. Sometimes what we do is we say GDP, sometimes you read in this document, sometimes they say GDP at constant prices. So when they say constant prices, what will you do? And we do this once in 10 years. So what you do, you may decide to base. They will say we are basing. When they say base, what they mean is they are trying to come up with growth in constant prices. So, for example, we would say 2010 prices. So we say 2010 is our base year. So what is the price of 2010? And now we are 2015. So we'll be using the price that was existing in 2010 and use it for all the years until 2020. Then we start it again. You can be based for whatever reasons you want. So you can be able to compare these are real growth or price nominal. Nominal is you don't care about price changes. You just say current price. So normally these GDP figures, when you read them in these publications from World Bank, from NSO, from Reserve Bank, they will tell you whether it's current price, market prices, or nominal prices. When they say current market prices or nominal prices, it's the same thing. But when they say constant, you have to look for what was the base year they used. Just for your understanding. So, economic growth is about growth in output, growth in GDP. That's economic growth. When they are assessing, Zambia is growing more than Malawi, they are looking at how Zambia is growing per year in terms of GDP, whether by how much, by what percentage every year. What about Malawi? GDP whether by what percentage every year. So you compare the growth rate of Zambia and growth rate of Malawi. But be mindful about inflation issues. Now, what about economic development? Economic development is a different concept. Economic development measures change in quality of life. Changes in living standards of people. And economic development also involves transformation. Economic development is about progress of people's lives. Improvement in living conditions of human beings. And usually it involves structural transformation. Transformation that we talk about is that you were a primary based economy. You become a manufacturing economy. So traditionally you were just producing primary commodities. Now you start manufacturing things. It's always that the contribution to GDP starts being less from primary commodities and being more to manufacturing and services. So GDP, for example, in Malawi might be about 30%. 30% is from agriculture. Agriculture is 30% of GDP. Manufacturing is maybe 7%. Trading 8%, and so on and so on and so on. Mind you, Mr. GDP is counting everything that we do. What we produce in terms of goods and services. We value everything. Now, countries which are not developed economically, much of your GDP is from what you produce on the land. Agriculture. 300 years ago, Britain was also like that. Just agriculture. Now, most of the agriculture is so small. You find that it used to be 30% of GDP, now it's 5%. A lot of GDP is they are producing cars, they are producing planes, they are producing all sorts of things in the factories. And that's what they're adding for them to come up with GDP. Whereas a less developed country, most of the things you are counting are from agriculture. Industry and services is very tiny. So the economic transformation of people is also different, because you know why? When you do that, you will find that even if you took the income approach, you find your salaries for people are even better, because salaries in the agricultural sector are very low. So if 80% of your people are spending time in Munda, will not be the same as your friends where 80% of their people are spending time in factories. Incomes there are different. So when they're taking the income approach, you find incomes there are different for people. So economic development is about transformation and improvement in people's lives, which is different from economic growth. Now, when we say economic development is about transformation in people's lives, improvement in people's lives, have you also noticed that this thing that we call improvement in people's lives has been changing? Initially, once somebody has 3 basic needs, life is sustainable. What did we used to say? What are the basic needs of human beings? Food, shelter, and clothing, which is a lie. It's a lie. No, it is. The basic needs of human beings, one is air. Can you close your mouth and nose for 10 minutes? See if you'll be alive. Do it for 10 minutes. So that's basic need number 1. Life. Basic need means for you to be alive. So you need air, number 1. Number 2, water. 3, food. And then you can do the others. Air, water, and food. These are the 3 basic needs for a life to be there. Kamoyo gamezi nako ni status. Air, you will not live in less than an hour if you don't have it. Okay? Water, you can last. I think you can go. How long can somebody live without water? Without any food? Huh? Maybe 3, 5, 7 days without any water. No juice, no water, nothing. You can last several days, but you cannot continue. Food, I think I've heard people can last 40 days. Yeah, it's possible. Not fasting, yes, not that one. 40 days, you are just taking fluids. You're just taking water and fluids. You can live think more than a month, Kenaka you die. So those are basic needs. Secondary basic needs are what you said, shelter and clothing. Shelter and clothing are not necessary. It's just in your head. You know, do you need clothing for you to survive? It's just that you will not throw away. I mean, if you walk naked, would you die? You won't die. Honestly. We can all walk naked and go to town, it is like a show, man, it's no problem. Honestly, you will not die. But you can die if the weather conditions are not right. Maybe it's too cold when you are in Russia, or even in South Africa, just Cape Town in June, when you can die because temperature doesn't Cape Town in Africa 2%, 3%. I was so shocked one time I went there in June. That's different scope. But wait till if you are in Russia where temperature can be minus 40. Minus 40. Better than UK. So there, at that particular time, you need clothing for warmth. So that you don't die out of freezing. Sometimes you can say clothing is a human need. You need it. Otherwise you die. Because it's too cold. If it's too hot, you don't need clothing. Shelter is the same thing. Kali anapanga manga nyumba, angakala makero. It's just because nice shelter is also depends on the circumstances. Maybe it's raining too much. Maybe it's too hot, so you need a shelter. But you can also dig a hole, a cave. You can. So anyway, those are the things. But these things have changed. These days, it's not just a matter of, for us to enjoy life. Imagine, economic development is about transformation and improvement in quality of life in people's lives. So which means we're talking about improvements. But moreover, we look at a lot of indicators. Indicators such as access to mobile phone, access to banking. You know, when you look at development, our development indicators, if you go on internet or you go web publications, the World Bank, indicators of economic development, you look there will be indicators of development. Countries which are considered will have poor figures as literacy rate in Malawi, another country. People who can read and write, literacy rate, mortality rate, life expectancy rate, access to water, access to basic education, they were not like that. In those indicators were not there 100 years ago. Now quality of life is being measured through added indicators, through added needs of people. Panoply and Bagona find cell phone is a need. Who can't be banking service is a need. You know? Turnover of much to indicate even in third roads. How many kilometers of paved roads you have in your country as an indicator? You are developing, you are attaining economic development. How many hospitals do you have? access to so many things. Access to banking services is an indicator of how well a country is doing. Not just GDP. GDP is just growth. Development is about quality of life. So that's the major difference. And the indicators have become wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. And they will continue becoming wider. Now, since we were talking about these things here, growth, real growth, nominal growth, I talked about inflation. That you have to be careful about inflation. Before we move on, I want to find out whether you know what we mean by inflation. What is inflation? You know. Things like inflation is, everybody talks about it, right? No, come on.
The origin is inflation.
Yes. Are you sure? I know. Yes. How can I not know your name? You are peace, comfort, isn't it?
Yes.
What is inflation?
Okay, so inflation, which you have to remember, we're talking about inflation, and make sure when you're comparing economic growth, be aware of that sometimes it can be just prices cheating you that you are growing when you are not growing. Remove this thing called inflation. Inflation is what? Inflation in general is referred to as a rise in prices. It's a rate at which prices for goods and services rise. Okay? And it's for a particular period. Usually you have to specify a period for which these prices are rising. So when prices of goods and services rise or increase there is inflation. The general increase, the rate of increase. So now, this, when we say rate of increase, is not the same as saying there is an increase. We are talking about rate of increase. It's increasing by what rate? Are we together? Increasing, rate of increase is not the same as just increase. Prices have been increasing, but at what rate? So inflation is that rate. Are we together? Prices have been increasing at what rate? Prices have been dropping at what rate? Prices have been increasing at what rate? At whatever per annum, is it per year? Your speed, for example, 50 kilometers per hour. That's your speed rate. So 10% per year, 10% per month, right? So it's the rate. That's what you should be clear about. So inflation is the rate at which prices of goods and services are rising. The rate at which prices of goods and services are rising. Now, these prices can sometimes, this inflation can be classified into three. In terms of just classifying it, I'm not talking about causes, I'm talking about classification. But this classification is, even though I'm saying I'm not talking about causes, but the classification is related to causes too. It is actually related to, this classification is actually related to causes. But we will discuss the causes more in greater detail, even though this topic of inflation is not very big in our course outline, but it's better to have a better understanding. This thing is related to what we learned in demand and supply. This concept of inflation is very related to what we learned in demand and supply theory. It's very related. And that is why, because we're talking about prices, and in our demand and supply theory, we're talking about prices. Apart from the other factors, we're saying what is the theory of demand, other things remaining the same, what happens to price and quantity. In the supply theory also, we're talking about prices, other things remaining the same. We're just only dealing with prices, what happens to quantity. And now we're talking about the rate at which prices are rising, being called inflation. So you can see how inflation is related to that study we did initially. And therefore, when you are classifying inflation, these prices for isolate, we are actually going to encounter what we learned in our demand and supply theories. So, therefore, when we classify inflation, we always say inflation is either demand pull or cost push. So it's demand pull inflation or cost push. And sometimes, last year we say built-in. So there are these three concepts: demand pull, cost push, built-in. Okay? Command me.